guys, I bought this house just to play badminton. You guys have to keep playing badminton.
It was kind of like a crystal ball. This is what these hangouts might be like soon. It's all gonna like revolve around kids.
As we get older, there are some people where our interests and priorities about the vision that we want for our life evolves and changes.
You know, overall, maintaining friendships takes a lot of patience and understanding.
But ultimately, it is up to you, and you have the right to decide this friend is not the kind of friend I want or need, so you have to move on. Welcome back to That 30 Show.
Welcome back to the podcast, everybody.
Hey G, I noticed this past weekend you were hanging out with kids a lot. Is that right?
I was just going to talk about this too.
You were?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
What?
I just wanted to say that, like, I feel like this weekend has been one of the best weekends. My heart feels very full because I hung out with like a bunch of kids. I hung out with a bunch of friends and I hung out with a bunch of kids and I hung out with my mom. So like, I really can't ask for a better weekend because that's like literally everything that I want to do all in one weekend. But I did hang out with kids and kids of like different ages. One was a newborn, one was like a toddler.
This reminds me of, I think it might have been our very first or just second episode when I mentioned that I went to a birthday party that ended at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
So we're kind of coming back full circle. I'm guessing your hangout didn't end that early, but how did it make you feel? I know you enjoyed it, but like, did it make you reflect on yourself or anything like that? Did it make you feel old, I guess?
It didn't make me feel old, but I guess this is like, and this is a great kind of, I guess, segue into our conversation today, but like, it was kind of like a crystal ball into the future, you know, like this is what these hangouts might be like soon. It's like it's all gonna like revolve around kids. Cause when we did hang out, I mean, with the hangout that I had with the newborn, a lot of it is still kind of like, oh, you know, adults talking, newborn sleeping. So it's kind of the same. But when you have like a toddler in the mix, like there's a lot of toddler play. And so like a lot of it is surrounding the toddler. And I was like, wow, this is like seeing into the future of what I don't know, the next few years are going to look like.
Something that I've heard a lot about, and as you just said, kind of a segue into this week's conversation, is when we go into our 30s, mid 30s, late 30s, it's not just necessarily kids, although that's probably the most common and relatable life shift, but the people around you, especially if you went to high school in the same town or city that you're still in right now. So you have a lot of high school friends in the vicinity. People start sort of transitioning into different life phases that may look very different to yours. And that might make it harder to maintain, not just necessarily even just stay in touch, but to maintain that same vibe, right? Maybe you used to go party with this gal, right? You guys went crazy Friday nights, and now only one of you can want to do that. And so I think I have a lot of thoughts and would be curious to unpack it with you today. But definitely, I know just seeing your Instagram stories this weekend, I was like, oh, she just went hanging out with a lot of kids. I wonder how that went. You like kids, so I think that's fine. But you know, for some friends, I mean, most people like kids, but you know, some people are just not as into it, right? Or even I've heard friends who are parents, they're like, I'm gonna second guess whether I should invite this person or not because I know they don't have anything against me or my kid. It's just this is not really their cup of tea, and that's totally fine. Except now, the entire hangout is gonna 95% of our energy is around our kid.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like I think parents will see it more often, like that distinction between their parent friends versus like their non-parent friends. I think it's more like real for them because the ones that don't have kids, it's like kind of hard, I could imagine, to include them. For me, it's nice. Like I like to see the kids, but like I could see for parents or like they either don't want to invite people without kids or they want to hang out without their kids. It's like one or the other.
I went to a friend's kid's birthday party celebrating their first year. And before going, I was talking to a mutual friend and we were kind of thinking, who's going to be invited to this? Because there's I mean, they're serving food, so like you're not gonna be conscious of not inviting the entire town, right? Because it's for budget reasons. I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I'm just making some assumptions here, right?
Yeah.
It might not be true, but one of the things that my friends mentioned as a potential variable for the host, for the parents, is they're gonna for sure invite all their friends who have kids so that they can bring their kids, and then for friends who don't have kids, they're potentially, and again, we're just speculating here, they're potentially only going to invite the child-free kids if those people have somehow demonstrated an interest in their child, because it's like a chance to catch up with the parents, but it's my kid's birthday. And so maybe if you're a parent and you sort of have gotten some hints or some vibes from friends seeing that, okay, they're not that into it, which is again fine. Hopefully people won't be, you're not going to take offense by it.
Yeah.
And then, but you might not invite them, even if they're a very close friend. Do you think that's fair, or that is potentially how some folks might think about their friendship circles?
I mean, I think that does make sense, but I do have to wonder. My experience is still kind of limited. Like, I don't have that many friends with kids, so I feel like it's just kind of starting, and I don't know how quick it will be, because I don't really know exactly how many of my friends even want kids. That's another story. But I think, like, based on my experience, that's a yes. But I could see the first birthday party and the friends just inviting like all of their friends just to like come hang out. It's like a chance to like talk to people that are outside of their kids' friend circles. But I mean, definitely, you make a lot of parent friends, I would assume. So it's like all these people that actually have kids that get to play with your kids because it is your kid's birthday party.
So the key thing that we want to try and navigate today is the idea of the potential challenge that comes with maintaining friendships when you're not in the same life stage anymore.
One of the reasons why I think this would be a really interesting topic is because I find that summertime in particular really brings people together. Maybe it's because it's nice outside, or maybe it's because summertime is just like when people have a bit more time. But it's like people that you never really talk to anymore, or like don't talk to often. Summer and like Christmas is when people seem to hang out the most.
Yep.
And so like, I just feel like recently I've been connecting with a lot of people that I don't see very often. And what I've noticed, two of the main reasons why a friendship is hard to maintain, at least in my experience, one is having kids, because I mean, that's obvious. No, there's less time when you have a kid. The other is proximity. Like, I feel like when people move away, especially to like a different city that's further away, I find it hard to maintain those kinds of friendships. And it's also because like if we don't have similar interests, then we never really see each other. But I think that's a big thing. If people move like an hour away from you, it's really hard to keep in touch. Have you ever found that in your friendships?
That's really interesting. I think that's a great point. I didn't think about that. I have a list of different reasons why it might be hard to maintain friendships through your 30s and beyond. But I didn't think of proximity. But that's such a good point, because we live in a place where there are a lot of people who are going to live an hour away because Vancouver downtown is quite unaffordable. And so I have some close friends that I would love to see more, but I just don't, because they're too far.
It's almost like a habit. Like, it has to be easy. It has to be close to you. Like, it has to be, I don't know, like as we have less time in our 30s, I feel like that's what needs to happen if you want to see your friends. Like,
yeah. And it's not even just an hour away. I have some of my best friends move to Toronto, for example. We had Pre-on in season 1 a long time ago. She's one of my close friends, but I wouldn't say we've lost touch. I think she listens to the pod sometimes. So I want to make sure I say it correctly, but it's certainly harder to like, you don't just be like, hey, let's grab brunch. It's been a few months, right?
Yeah.
And so proximity is a key point. And even for me, when I'm looking for potential places to move to in the next couple of years, I've thought about, okay, well, if I move here, move to A or move to B, where does this put me in proximity to my good friends?
Yeah.
If I'm moving far away, I'm going to move far away from my current friend circles that I frequently are in contact with. But if I'm moving, but I might be moving closer to some other friends I don't see as much. So is that so that's certainly part of my decision-making process.
And I feel like a lot of people don't actually... Do you think a lot of people think about this when they think about moving? Like how close they are, maybe to family, but do you think they think about how close they are to their friends? Like I think people think, okay, once I move away, it's fine. I'll still see people regularly. It'll be all good. But then that doesn't really end up happening.
No, and this is so funny because I was talking to a friend that I play badminton with regularly, and we were having lunch one-on-one, and I was talking to her about my plans to potentially move, look for different places to live or buy property. And then I was like, okay, I might move to this city, and this is going to be quite far from where we currently play badminton. So I might not be able to come anymore once I move. And then she was, oh my gosh, that's like end of an era. Yeah. That's so crazy. You're going to move away. You're not going to come to badminton. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to make this giant life decision based on how close I am to badminton, because I could stay in this current city and this badminton group could literally disband the very next week inadvertently because of whatever reasons. Yes. I'm not going to be like, oh, to my, to my partner and to my future plans, I'm not going to move to city because I'm playing badminton every week with this group. Yeah. But at the same time, it is definitely a sacrifice that's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to give this up, but no, I'm not going to rule out moving to a more affordable city just because it's going to be too far from my current badminton group. Yeah. I mean, fair enough, because everybody might end up moving at some point and you don't want to be stuck somewhere where you made your decision based on your friends. Exactly. Can you imagine? I think I buy I don't know. In Vancouver, the average price is like $1 million, right? Let's say I buy $1 million property just so that I can stay within my badminton group, and then they stopped going. I was like, guys, I bought this house just to play badminton. You guys have to keep playing badminton. That's not a thing. So yeah, I don't think you would make a decision based on your friends, but it definitely is a both either a fortunate or unfortunate side effect or byproduct. This is sparking a mental note for me because we do have a mutual friend who just moved across the country. And so this, once they settle in a little bit, I would be interested to hear how that's going to go in terms of, moving and being away from seeing people that you have talked to on a regular basis. So this proximity variable you mentioned is very interesting because I think it's a great point, but it's definitely to me, it strikes me as a bit more of a circumstantial variable. As we just explained, it's not something you necessarily can decide, even if you want to, right? It's based on affordability and more important priorities, frankly, than just where your friends are also living. Yeah. But that's the keyword, and priorities. And that's where I actually want to get your thoughts on. Because when I was thinking about this topic before our recording today, I kind of came up with the philosophy that this idea of having challenge maintaining friendships as you move through different life stages and you're not on the same page anymore, it's very much comes down to what is your priority at that moment? What have you chosen for your to be the priority in your life? And I've sort of created a few main categories of what these main priorities tend to be, and I want to see what you think. Okay. So kids is one, but I actually have a separate category from kids that I call either a mix of home, adulting / partner, because you could have someone who is in a long-term relationship, they don't have kids, but they spend a lot of time in their home, at their home, building their home, because maintaining a home, as anyone who lives independently knows, is quite time consuming. Chores, you want to decorate it, you want to make it nice, you want to be responsible, you want to cook most of your meals, you want to go on weekly date nights, you want to spend quality time with your partner. That takes a lot of time, even without kids. And I even without a partner, a lot of those things that you just listed are absolutely chores. But I think for me, I'm a bit biased, right? Because I don't have kids and I'm still really, really busy. And I'm like, where is my time going? And a lot of it is going to maintaining my home and spending time with my partner. Okay, so those are a couple key arenas. The other ones is career, leisure, and the third and final one I labeled as spiritual/health. Spiritual/health in the sense that you might spend time at the gym, you might spend time volunteering, you might spend more time meditating, but it's all in that bubble of self-care.
Yeah.
Health, mental health.
Yeah.
Giving back to the community. So I feel like my life is meaningful. Because oftentimes we don't find that meaning through our career unless you're, who's the doctor guest we had on again? What's his name?
Michael.
yeah. Unless you're Michael and you love your job, or you're Kim and you love your job.
Yeah.
A lot of us try and find meaning outside of our career. So for you, I don't know if you agree with these arenas. Maybe you can comment on that first. But career, home, kids, leisure, health. These are the 5 that I came up with. Am I missing any? And B, what do you think takes up most of your time that makes it, that might impede on your friendships?
Well, I have a couple to add after, but I think like for me, it's not a factor because I don't have kids, but I do think kids is like a huge time consuming
Yeah, no
thing.
kidding.
Right? Because like even when people are in relationships, I don't find that. I found that more in my 20s when people, do the whole ghosting thing. Like once they get into a relationship, like you never see them again because they're just with their partners. Yeah, all the time. I don't see that as much in my 30s. I do feel like people are more conscious to maintain friendships, even when they are in a relationship. I felt like that was more like of a 20s thing. I don't know if you agree, but I do see a lot of my friends still, even when they get into relationships. So I don't notice that as much.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I do prioritize like my friendships a lot. So the things that you talk about, like the health and the wellness and things like that, like I'll do it with my friends. Like I'll make it a thing to like work out with my friends or go do things like that. And then career and home. Yeah, career might be one of them, but I feel like because we're all kind of a bit more settled in our careers now, unless people are working, OT or doing something outside of their work. I do find that it's been pretty stable. So to me, I just I don't know. I keep harping back to kids.
Okay, so I hear you. For you, it's mainly the kids that makes maintaining friendships quite a bit of a different picture as you enter your 30s and beyond. Are you ready? Here's my main thesis. This is my main argument about this topic that I find most interesting, that I think it goes beyond kids for some folks.
Yeah.
And this is coming very much from personal experience. So I might, maybe it's just me. So I'd be curious what you think. I think that as we get older, there are some people, and myself definitely included, where our interests and priorities about the vision that we want for our life evolves and changes. When I was in my 20s, my main priority was having fun, traveling, hanging out with friends. There was never any quota to hanging out, as in there was never too much of it. But now, if I just have fun and hang out with friends and go out and whatever every weekend, I don't have time to build the life that I want. It's not just going to happen. And so I think if you're settled into your career and you're happy with that, and both financially and personally, it's sufficient, then I think you're lucky. But what I've noticed for myself is that essentially I've found myself becoming a lot more selfish and not having the time for friends. And I'm not sure how I feel about it. I've been actively reflecting on this now, because now I have multiple side projects I'm trying to pursue. This podcast is one of them, and it's quite time consuming, much more than perhaps listeners realize. But I also want to do other things as a means to grow my sources of income, to earn more money. I've never had this desire or need to earn more money until now that I really want to have a family in the near future, or have kids in the near future. And so that's why I see career, right? It's like, okay, how much time are you investing in, like, let's say pursuing additional, like, continuing education, master's degrees, etc.? How much time are you spending to upskill yourself, to apply for other jobs, to start your own business? And then in terms of your vision for yourself, I'm spending way more time trying to stay fit now, stay active. Before I didn't need to do that. And so now I find I have to be so intentional with my time because there's so many things that are pulling me in different directions. And I can't just, quote unquote, have fun ad nauseum, have fun and hang out with friends with no limitations, because I have this vision for what my life looks like health-wise, financially, like professionally. And unless I get off my ass and work hard towards making that reality come to life, it's not going to. For example, my board game is not going to design itself. My income is not going to triple by itself. I need to start. I want to try entrepreneurial pursuits. My body is not going to maintain its fitness without an hour work, every day at the gym or at the running track. And so I have much less time for hanging out now. And I hate it because it's so much more fun just to hang out. And so going back to what I mentioned to you earlier before we start recording, my main question is every day I look at your IG and other people's IG. And honestly, I'm a bit jealous because I'm like, gosh darn, look at how much fun they're having again. Where do they have the time for this? I am just drowning in my chores, in my work, in other life responsibilities. How the heck do you find so much time for it? I don't have time for that anymore.
Okay, so that's a really good point about your career. I do think, so earlier I said in our 30s, maybe we're a bit more established in our career now. And so that doesn't actually take that much time away. But no, you're right. Like if you are trying to advance your career in your 30s, perhaps you're trying to do side hustles. I've had friends who went back to school to do their MBAs or to do higher education to try and, upgrade their career. Definitely. That will take like all the time in the world, right? Especially if you are going back to school. I have had a friend who went back and did his MBA, and yeah, like weekends are spent studying and the rest of the time you're doing your 9 to 5. So of course that does take up a lot of time, but the rest, I would say, chores, I don't find chores to take up that much time. I don't know, maybe you have a more extensive chore list than I do. And then, like I said, like with health and wellness stuff, I try to incorporate, like, have friends as part of that too. I love when I get to do like activities out with friends, like even just hiking or walking or taking workout classes. Like those are all part of health and wellness, but you're also doing it with friends. So that's actually a really great way to be able to maintain friendships, because you feel productive because you're doing something active, but you are also hanging out with your friend. So I think it's like trying to combine things is a great way to maintain those friendships.
I think you actually hit on the point that the next point that I wanted to bring up, which is the people you surround yourself with and the people that you spend time with. I was going to make the argument that I have to not make or choose different kind of friendships based on what I want my life to be about. But you've kind of done that. Either you have been able to maintain the same friendships and they have either evolved or stayed along with your hobbies and priorities, such as working out and going to the gym. But that's not always the case. And I think there are people whose friends, like I've heard from, especially male friends, who are like, these people, they're still spending most of their free time playing video games. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, except when one of the friends decides this is no longer what they want to spend their time in their life doing. And to each their own, right? I'm not shitting on video games. I would love to play video games. But that's the idea of like, okay, who do you surround yourself with and what are your common goals and interests? So you have people to work out with. So yeah, that's a great point. Because when I go to the gym every day, I'm going there by myself. But you're often working out with friends or doing physical activities with friends. And that's also your time to catch up. So lucky you.
Well, but it also takes like the initiative on either my part or a friend's part to be like, hey, let's go do this, and like, it doesn't just happen. And I do feel like that is harder in your 30s because you always, I listened to this podcast once that was like, friendships in your 30s is basically bumping into each other at the mall and saying, oh, we should hang out sometime, and then never doing that for like years. And she was saying that when people say we should hang out sometime, they actually do mean it, but people don't follow up for some reason. And I think it just kind of gets lost after you say that. And so it does take a lot of active planning and initiative because people are just not, I shouldn't say people are not as spontaneous now, but sometimes calendars fill up and you gotta like actively plan something to get into other people's calendars.
Are you good at that?
I'm pretty good at initiating hangouts.
Okay.
And also attending hangouts, obviously, because I'm out all the time. But yeah.
I'm definitely not good at being the one who's taking initiative to stay in touch. Mm-hmm. I'm more reactive. And that's partly because honestly, I feel like I'm drowning in the different things I want to do and get done with my life. And so, and it comes down to a values thing, right? It's about what do you think is a life well lived? And I just find that personally, I've had some reflections on my friendships and how much energy I'm putting into different kind of friendships based on whether I feel I connect with this person. Because one of the things, for example, is this podcast, or both you and I anyway, are quite passionate about is self-improvement. And I think most people are in different ways, but some people to greater or lesser extents. I guess what I'm trying to beat around the bush here. Let me just be a bit more blunt because why not?
Okay.
I think that when you get into your 30s or earlier, or at some point in your life, ideally sooner rather than later, you get to a point where you realize that life is not going to be fulfilling or rewarding or set you up for long-term success financially, health-wise, and professionally if you just live it the same way you did when you were in high school and university, which means playing a lot of video games, hanging out with friends, and always having leisure as your only goal in life. When you're not working, you're 9 to 5, all you're doing is having fun. I think I can't connect with someone like that very much anymore. And not just I can't connect, I don't want that person in my life. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're a good influence on me, that they're relatively what I would consider stagnant and not passionate to design and work towards a vision for their life that is greater. But also, I guess, last quick note is, I guess it does come down to ultimately, well, maybe some people are just content with a simple life. I talk about this with my partner a lot, this idea. And she's told me how, like, most people are much more simple. They don't have this desire to do something great. Anyways, anything you want to respond to there for my slightly, if not overtly judgmental monologue?
I think it's important to remember that today we are talking about maintaining friendships. And so that is just one facet of your life. That doesn't mean that like friendship has to be your only thing. But I think going back to me talking about balance all the time, you need to reflect on what actually brings you joy on a day-to-day basis. Like for me, what brings me joy? Okay, if I conquered something tough that I've been nervous to do, but I did, to me, that like brings me joy, fills my cup up. Other thing is like connecting with people, having these friendships that are a super strong bond where I can talk to them about my worries, or if I'm having a great day, I like to share that with them. And those things also fill my glass up. So like at the end of the day, when my head hits the pillow, did I have a good day today? Like, was I happy? And if it's a yes, then I would say that it's like a life well lived. So maybe that is the more simple-minded mindset that you were talking to your partner about. I look at it like almost on a day-to-day basis. And of course, I think about the future, like what are my goals and dreams? But for the most part, I like to just reflect at the end of each day and see if I had a good day or not and what made it great. And friendship is a lot of the time part of that equation and being able to connect with friends. So that is something that I put my priority into. And it's okay if that's not yours. Like if you feel super fulfilled after working on something that you really want to achieve all day, and that's what brings you joy, then that's fine. Like that's great. Well, and everything that you see on Instagram, people hanging out and stuff, like, do you actually want that, or does that just look fun?
Like that's the point. Like it's fun, but it's not delaying gratification in my mind. It's the same thing as not going to the gym. I guess I'm hearing what you're saying. I'm reflecting on what I said. I think actually what it boils down to for me, everything I'm trying to explain here, it boils down to, do you, person A, person B, do you have a vision for what your life looks like in the next 10, 20, 30 years? And are you on track to achieve that vision? Mm-hmm. For many people, they may be on track with their current actions. For me, I'm very far from being on track to fulfill that vision that I want, from that my life to look like. Mm-hmm. And I think that it's becoming hard for me to relate to or maintain friendships where there's a very big gap between what I want my life vision to look like and what their vision for their life looks like.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think what I really want to do is try and find ways to surround myself with people whose life vision aligns with mine so that we can be positive influences on each other. Mm-hmm. I'll give you an example. I have a friend, we were talking about like side hustles, and we both have this passion. They have young kids and they're like, I need to make more money for my family, man. I'm like, I need to make more money for my family. Mm-hmm. Like this. And then we're like, oh, I was watching this YouTube video on this, like how to make this Etsy. So I was like, I was watching the same video. And so we both have this goal of like, okay, I need to earn more money outside of my job. I want to earn more money for my family, take care of my kids. And I need to make that reality. And so after a few conversations, I was like, hey, you know what? This is maybe a bit too much. I don't know if I'm overstepping because I'm not super close with this person. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, we both clearly have the same goal, but also the same challenge of making it work, making it happen. Why don't we just like hold each other accountable as accountability partners, essentially, mm-hmm. and commit to working on our project like 2 hours every weekend. And we'll either meet up at a coffee shop or meet up over Zoom just to be there and be like, all right, are you doing it? I'm doing it. And then like after 2 hours, be like, all right, what did you do today? And I find this kind of friendship really fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And that's how I'm personally experiencing this topic today, maintaining friendships when you're no longer the same life stage. That's part of my experience, which is gravitating more towards people who have the same sort of ambitions for their life.
I mean, you hear a lot of the successful entrepreneurs say that they lost a lot of friends on their, like, through their journey of becoming successful and wealthy.
A lot of sacrifices because of time that you spend, right?
Totally. And just based on the fact that your values don't align with your friends anymore, like you said, like your interests are different. And that's something that I've also noticed, like when friends have drifted, it's because your interests are not the same anymore. The things that you want to do is not the same as what your friends want to do. And so you don't really have those commonalities anymore. One major thing is, going out all the time, having fun, going to parties and stuff. Some people that's not what they're interested in. And so naturally, if that's what you want to do all the time and that's not what your friend wants to do, it's very difficult to maintain those kinds of friendships.
I think I have a lot of friends who see their calendar the same way I used to see it, which is if I don't have a social plan, then that means I'm free. So for example, I went to play poker a few months ago, right?
Yeah.
And it was with a group that I never played with before. And I haven't played poker for years. I'm like, great, it's opportunity. Let me go and do it. But it takes like hours. Okay. I have fun. And then like, oh, let's do it again. The next week, they were trying to schedule something. And then I was like, oh, I'll skip this one. But if you have another one later this summer, I'll join. Because in my head, I'm like, I need to pace myself. I can't suddenly start playing poker like twice a month. Like that's 12 hours out of my month. I don't have time for that. Honestly, I wish I could be like that. I wish I could, every time I don't have a social plan, I am free. I used to be like that and I'm not, because if I do that, I will never create the life that I want for myself.
Yeah. Well, I think you kind of see hanging out with people as sort of like that, where you're on your phone for like 2 hours and then afterwards you just feel so awful because like the phone gave you like so much dopamine, you were having so much fun, but then after you're like, that was so unproductive and I didn't even get to do anything that will actually advance my life. And that sounds like
a little bit. No. I mean, I don't feel awful about it. I'm like, I'm just pacing myself in ways that I think a lot of my friends aren't. Mm-hmm. The past half hour is just me essentially trying to explain why I think it's more than just having kids or not having kids. It's, as you said, as as life changes, as you get older, your life interests and priorities change.
Yeah.
And the people that you surround yourself with probably changes too, because if there's a big misalignment, they want to hang out, have a Friday movie night every single week. Even without kids, it's like, that's not how I want to be spending my time, even though, yeah, I would love to just see you every week, but that's not going to get me to where I want to be in 20, 30 years. Based on your experience, the people you know, do you think that what I've been trying to explain here is kind of an anomaly or weird or uncommon?
I feel like you have the mentality of successful entrepreneurs that you hear on podcasts. All of their journeys is kind of like yours. Like they had to let go mostly of friendships that aren't aligned with the same things that they like to do. And they had to pursue relentlessly at the thing that they know they want to do or achieve in life. So I don't really think yours is an anomaly. I think maybe you just need to find your people.
Yeah. I mean, the person that I was sort of connecting with every weekend to work on our project, he made the comment how he's like, yeah, I don't have people in my life that are sort of aligned with this. And it's funny, my partner mentioned how, when she's hanging out with friends who have kids and then she comes home, her mind's like, oh, I want kids. I need to have kids. I want to start a family. And then when she's hanging with friends who are super ambitious and career driven and entrepreneurial and stuff, she comes home and is like, oh my gosh, I need to start my business. Where's my business? And so I think it's just, it's a big factor who you see. You're the average of the 5 people who you spend the most time with. And I think your partner has the most outsized effect on that. And I personally feel very lucky because I think my partner is a really positive influence on me. But at the same time, that is one of the big reasons that I am sort of in this mode where I am right now, because she is one of the most ambitious people I've ever met. And so I am inspired to be at her level.
I mean, yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You should go after what it is that you want from life. And so if that is not exactly playing video games every day, then you should go chase what it is that you do want to do.
You mentioned something here that I want to get to, financial constraints. I think that's an interesting thing because I think I've seen a TikTok where they were having a conversation. It's like a skit, right? Where it's a POV of talking to someone who's in a different tax income bracket than you, as you.
Yeah.
And what they're saying is that oh, you should just borrow against your properties and whatever. And it's like, I don't have a property. And they're like, oh, well, you should really get one. Have you experienced that going out, just different financial disposable levels of disposable income?
Yeah. If you have friends that enjoy going out all the time and spending money and going to do activities and stuff. But if that's just not something that you can afford because either you're saving money for your future or you don't want to be spending money on things like this, then I mean, it's going to be really challenging to maintain those friendships unless you are initiating these hangouts and initiating things that don't require money. Maybe you have a FaceTime with your friends, but then you got to take more initiative. If all your friends enjoy doing something and you don't, you got to take the initiative to maintain those connections with all of your friends. But I think that's a big one, especially, I mean, after COVID, when people were allowed out again, and especially in this economy, everything's super expensive. I think it does get challenging if your group of friends really enjoy hanging out all the time where you need to spend money.
Or let's say you're in a group of friends, right? And your group formed back when everyone was basically on a similar disposable income level because you're just coming out of university or you're in university. And then now we're well beyond that. And I think it's not an elephant in the room really, but let's just put our friend group as an example. I know for a fact that there is quite a large disparity between some individuals in our friend group, right, Chi? When we go out or vacations or meals, that's in the back of my mind sometimes, which is, oh, that person can afford a lot more, but they're happy to compromise because they understand not all of us can. Or, oh, I don't know how much that person can afford. Let's just play it safe kind of thing. Let's not ask too much of everyone.
I do like going out for activities where you have to spend a little bit more money, but I really don't think that you need that in order to maintain a friendship.
No, you don't. But let's be real. You have a friend or one or two friends or a group where you're like, oh, this is my go-to because I know you have this amount of money.
Totally.
Like I do.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like, for example, you're going to, let's say you're going to Europe and you have 4 different potential candidates to go with. You might make the consideration of who to plan with partly based on your financial means. And so you're like, all right, this is my traveling person because we have similar income levels or disposable income, right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I do think that it would be challenging if you and your friends have like a really high sort of income gap or whatever that you can't do. Again, it goes back to the interest thing. You can't do things that you're both interested in because you just aren't able to.
So we've talked about, basically it coming down to who's taking initiative. Is there anything else in terms of how do we solve for this problem? How do we manage this problem? Is it just making new friends? Is it taking more initiative? Is there anything else that comes to mind? And because there's this part of me, a pretty big part of me, that is quite scared that I'm making the age-old mistake of neglecting the importance of relationships and friendships for the sake of other stuff. Because, on your deathbed, no one's like, oh, I wish I spent more time at the office, right? That's the proverbial mindset that people share.
Well, I don't even think you're at that stage, are you? I mean, there are some people who are like literally have ditched all their friends in pursuit of career and have made it because they had more time to be able to do that. And I mean, anecdotally, they say that I've heard both sides, right? Like, I regret this, and also this was the best decision I've ever made in my life. So, but it doesn't sound like you're there. You still got that balance somehow. I do find that the people that I don't actually maintain a friendship with, as in like, I don't talk to them on a regular basis, if they are active on social media and they are constantly sharing things, I feel like maintaining that friendship with them somehow, because I kind of know what they're doing. Like I know what they're up to. So even if we don't talk often, if somebody is sharing a lot, I feel like I have a connection with them still.
I mean, that's one of the advantages of social media is that you do maintain, like I can see what my mom's up to. My mom can see what I'm up to in ways that are easier because of social media than not. Maybe we can circle back to the main gap that we see and flesh out a couple final thoughts on it, which is the kids or no kids thing. And it probably kind of applies to everything, right? Whether it's because of kids or career or anything else, when you have a gap. I think something that I've heard people who have had to face considerable challenges in maintaining friendships because of this, my friend has kids now. It's both managing and communicating expectations. Like, I know someone who had kids, and at the very beginning, they're like, I'm going to be a terrible friend for the next 2 years. And I'm sorry for that. But that's communicating, and that's setting expectations. At the same time, for me, I have the expectation that if my friends have kids, I have complete understanding of their shifted life priorities and the fact that they can't come to badminton anymore, or that they don't have time for X or Y, or they only want kid-friendly restaurants. I mean, I'm kind of tooting on my own horn here maybe, but I've heard that there's a lot of people, not everyone is as understanding, perhaps.
That's one thing I was going to raise, is that I think, like, overall, maintaining friendships takes a lot of patience and understanding, especially in our 30s when we're all going through big life changes. And even if you have a conflict with somebody, we haven't really talked about that because, like, I mean, maintaining friendships also comes with things like, if you had an argument with somebody or if you have conflicts with somebody, like, I feel like maybe in our earlier 20s, it was easier to just say, okay, well, you're not a good friend. Like, I'm never going to talk to you again. But I feel like now it takes, like, you really need to be able to have the patience with people, knowing that they might be going through something you don't even know about, or something that you haven't experienced before, and just being open-minded, being understanding about their situation, and say, like, okay, well, maybe they aren't hanging out with me as much because they're working on their career goals. I don't really think, it's good if you can communicate that, but even if not, I think it should be ingrained in your mind that people might be going through things that you don't know about.
I absolutely love that. I wish everyone is like that. I don't think everyone's like that. I mean, certainly, of course they're not, but I think a good amount of people are not as easily able to extend that patient, sympathetic, and understanding shoulder, so to speak. I think that some of the friendships I've really, really enjoyed are the ones where I feel free of burden, free of expectations, where there's a trust there that we know we do care about each other. on a very fundamental and intrinsic level. And any absence of communication does not change that.
Yes. Yeah.
And when we do connect, we take it in good faith. We receive it in good faith, and we make the most of it when we can. Oh, this is the first time in 2 years we're catching up. Let's make the most of this time. Do we wish we saw each other more? I trust and know that you and I both think that, both wished that. But for one reason or another, it did not happen, but it's not out of any malintent.
Or if it's like, even if it's someone that you haven't talked to in a really long time, but you know that your friendship is really deep rooted and they come to you for like help. It's not like you're going to be like, oh, well, you haven't reached out in like, 2 years and now all of a sudden you're coming to me for help and stuff like that. I feel like those deep, meaningful friendships, like when they come to you for help, you will help them regardless of if you haven't talked on a regular basis for like 2 years. My mom actually has always talked about that because she's someone who doesn't have a lot of like day-to-day friends. But she has, I feel like, these more like deep-rooted friendships where they won't see each other for a really long time, but you know that the friendship is there. I really love that. I think that is a sign of maturity.
Having said that, to play not devil's advocate necessarily, but having said that, I think it's also entirely fair if you are someone who has certain expectations and needs from your friend. Let's say I need my friend to respond to my texts and have conversations with me over WhatsApp daily, and they're not doing that. And this is upsetting me. I don't know if you can tell this is from personal experience or not, but because I'm terrible at responding to text messages. And just as a disclaimer, me and maybe other people that do this, for me anyways, I don't like to have conversations over WhatsApp, okay? So I'm not going to use time to catch up over WhatsApp. WhatsApp is a tool for us to communicate things on a transactional level. I care about you. If you want to catch up, let's catch up face to face, and I'll give you 2 hours of undivided attention. But I'm not going to chat with you like we're in high school over MSN. That's just not how life works. Okay, if that's what you need, I can't do that. But here's my point though. If that is what you need and that other friend is not giving it to you, yeah, sure, you can complain to that person. But ultimately, it is up to you, and you have the right and you have every right to decide this friend is not meeting my expectations anymore. They're not the kind of friend I want or need. So you have to move on. You can't force your friend to give you the friendship that you want or expect. Oh, I want my friend to want to hang out in this way. And I've known certain people who hold on to this expectation of what the friendship looks like. And they're either disappointed time and time again, or hurt time and time again, or feel offended time and time again because that friend is not friending with them the same way they want to be friended. I just think they need to move on and realize, hey, you know what? They're allowed to live the life they want. And if they're not giving you the friendship that you want that friendship to look like, then you deserve better, right? If you want your friends to talk to you daily on WhatsApp, then you deserve that. You go find some friends that are going to talk to you. I'm not going to be that person. My loss. I'm going to lose you as a friend. That's my loss. That's how I think.
You take a breath. Have you breathed in the last minute?
I'm not angry. Just stop expecting me to respond to messages so often. My gosh.
Oh my goodness. I could feel the heat. I don't even know what I was going to say. I was going to say, I feel like it kind of comes down to a feeling sometimes. You just know who those friends are. Like, of course. I mean, I was just saying you have friends who you might not ever see, but if they come to you with a problem, you know that they're going to help you. But on the other hand, of course, if you have that friend who is like only comes to you with all of their issues and then like never talks to you, but like always comes to you when they need help. I mean, obviously, like
that's a good point.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just that feeling of who this person is and who your friend is. And it goes beyond explanation. You just know.
Yeah, but like angry tirade aside, like my point is though, like that you are allowed to have expectations, but it is up to you to understand and have the self-respect to move on if you feel your friend is not respecting or treating you well enough.
Yeah. I mean, never hold on to a grudge as it's not going to affect that other person. When you're holding a grudge, you're only sabotaging yourself. And B, you're never going to be able to control other people's actions. You can only control your reaction to what they're doing. Why would you let yourself be angry or feel disappointed?
Well, easy to say.
It's easy to do too.
Okay. Was there other points you wanted to bring up?
I mean, today's conversation was really about maintaining friendships, like the friendships that do exist. Hopefully we'll be able to have on a guest in the future to talk about making friends. And maybe that's where, we talk more about how to find friends that align with your values and goals.
I think the last thing I will mention is just to echo your point earlier about the patience thing. I think ultimately that's just what it comes down to. Mm-hmm. Extend the people in your life a bit of compassion, extend them the benefit of the doubt. You never know what they're going through. And people are rarely out to get you. They're rarely out to offend you. And, if your friendship never gets back to the levels it was, I don't know, it's be happy that you had those memories. And because life moves on, people change. I think it's a very natural thing for friendships to evolve and change, and for some friendships to come and go. That's just me though. I've had a lot of friendships come and go, partly because I've moved. I haven't lived in the same city all my life. But I do know some people who have had the same friends, since elementary or high school, and that they have not lost contact with a single good friend. Mm-hmm. I don't really know how that works. I just feel like people change as a natural rhythm of life. And as you change, your friendships, probably some friendships change too. But I guess that's how you decide your maid of honor or your best man. It's those friends that have stayed with you through all the ups and downs, left turns and right turns. You share no commonalities from the reason you first met, and yet you're still good friends. Whether you have kids, whether you're pursuing your career, if you have friends that can somehow manage to stick with you through all those changes, whether it's your change or their change, I think those are absolutely priceless. And those are definitely worth every effort to maintain. I think they're quite rare. I think you have quite a number of them though. Wow. And you're very lucky.
I do. I am very lucky, and I do have quite a few of them. And I think it's everything that we talked about today, aligning. Our interests kind of like changed in the same way.
Really?
It took a lot of patience and understanding too, when things like when we were at a crossroads maybe, and somehow you're able to get through that, and we're kind of on the same life path. So it's like everything that we talked about today, and I do think that's rare though. I do think that's rare, and I do think I'm very lucky for it, because somehow you need all the stars to align to be able to maintain the friendship that you have since like grade 8. Because how many years is that, right? All
right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. I hope you all maintain your friendships better than I do. No, I'm kidding. I hope I do a good enough job. But yeah, it's an interesting topic. All right. Mm-hmm. Until next time.
Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.